Good evening, Donald from D&D Defense, back with another video. Yesterday I made a video with regards to ranges with the firearm and how they can differ depending on the circumstances, environment, and a variety of other variables. And so I guess what I want to go over today is weapons in general. And so with any weapon, there's always going to be ranges, and then there's going to be differences in how you handle that weapon depending on that range. So at the most basic fundamental level, you have at least 3 ranges, and then there's going to be ranges that fall within those categories. So you're going to have close range, medium range, and far range. And so depending on the range would be dependent on the weapon. So in this video, I'm first going to just show a few weapons. As you can probably see, I have a couple arnis or arnis sticks, or also commonly referred to as silat, but more so in the Philippines it's known as arnis. That's actually the national martial art, and so these are arnis sticks, and so as you can see, as I stick this out, that gives me at least another arm's length worth of range. So this is roughly medium range. Another option or weapon is a blade. Now, of course, because it's shorter, this is more of a short range. And so utilizing this target here, I'm just gonna, as you can see, the head here, I'm gonna stand back out of the video momentarily, just in the interest of showing the ranges and how this works. And so with a stick, as you can see, I'm roughly a rough distance away to where I can still strike the head or strike the body. I can touch him. Now, if he had a stick, he would be able to touch me. But that's the whole point of a stick, or in this case, arnis sticks. This can apply to any type of blunt or bludgeoning weapon. It's just an extension of my arm, which, without going into too much of the weeds of it, since it is an extension of your arm, anything that your arm does, the weapon will do. So if my arm rotates, I have this kind of back type motion. So if I stab, and then come here, I can flip and get a head strike. So to the stomach, and then flip and hit the head strike. And that's all stemming from the wrist and the arm turning over and hitting. Not necessarily the purpose for this video, but since it was relevant at the time, which is why I mentioned it. With that being said, this is a medium range weapon. So within medium range of an attacker or some sort of someone trying to do you harm. And so if I was to then transition to a blade, as you can see, standing at the same distance, I don't have that ability to cut, which means I need to step in, and now I have that ability to cut. But I've closed the distance. I've gotten closer, which is why a knife is close range. Sticks, traditionally speaking, are medium range. And then your firearms, as you can see, orange dot, or orange plastic piece on the end, indicating that this is not a real firearm. It's a airsoft. Nothing in it. It's still always good to be into that practice of checking your weapon. This is a distance weapon. Why? Because it shoots out projectiles that travel to distances. But as I indicated yesterday, those ranges can still change, because remember, your environment will dictate the range as well as what the attacker is doing. I could be, let's just say that the attacker is there and I'm here, and this gives me full extension. But let's just say that I'm still holstered, and now the person approaches me or runs at me and gets here while I'm getting my weapon out. I no longer have the ability to extend, because if I do, he's going to get my weapon. So now I have to come here. Okay? And so, once again, it's really dependent, and you never want to be running back. So for those who may be viewing this video saying, oh, well, if he rushes you, you could just move backwards. And in any self-defense scenario, particularly if you're dealing with weapons, you never want to be moving back on your feet. It's a lot easier for him to move forward, because it's just a natural movement and a natural progression moving forward as opposed to moving backwards. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but it's risky because you don't have eyes in the back of your head. And if you're more focused on the threat, then you're not necessarily focused on what's behind you. And that could be a friend, that could be a secondary weapon getting involved, or it could just simply be a broken piece of curb that you trip on and now you're on the ground. And in a self-defense situation where you're dealing with weapons, that's the last place you want to be. Now, I did show a video or make a video on what to do if you hit the ground and you have a firearm. A drill that you can work in order to, still defend yourself on the ground safely. But once again, there's caveats to everything. And to that, the caveat is the person actually has to be an immediate threat. He can't just push you to the ground and then you draw your weapon and shoot. Legally speaking, you're going to go to prison. I'm not a lawyer, so this is not legal advice, but 9 times out of 10, I can tell you that will be the thing that happens. So the purpose of this video is merely to just highlight ranges and what weapons indicate those types of ranges. And as I just demonstrated, even though a firearm is a far range weapon, it can be a very close range weapon, and how you manipulate that weapon will be significantly different. Okay? The same thing with a blade. If I'm the attacker or we're here, I have to step in, but I can take wider strikes. Now, if he collapses the distance on me and gets close to me, now I don't have that same, slashing motion. I have to now bring it in tighter and do this type of stuff. Okay, I have to keep my hands in tighter. Okay, or maybe elbows. And that's kind of where like Muay Thai comes in, knees, to create some space so that I can now, once I've created that space, I can start with those slashing and stabbing motions into the attacker. But again, just because this is a short range weapon doesn't mean that you still can't attack from a distance. It's just going to be a limited distance just because of the length of the weapon. Now you turn this into a sword, and now you have a medium range weapon, but it cuts as opposed to, crushes like someone's skull, like a blunt or bludgeoning object. Okay, so understanding what the tool does is also super important. So understanding your tools, whether it's a blade, a gun, or a stick of some sort, understanding your tools, what they're meant for, and what the ranges are for those. And understanding also that those ranges may fluctuate. There may be a sliding scale there, because environmental reasons, meaning your environment, if you're in a restaurant, a subway, you're in tight quarters, you know, that will change the type of weapon you use and how you use that weapon, as opposed to, you know, maybe being in a parking lot, you know, or maybe a parking garage, you know, or in just in an open street environment, an urban environment. So there's a lot of different things. And then on top of that, the variables that you would have to consider is, are there innocents? You know, should I use my gun, or is a knife or my hands more preferable? You know, again, your hands are a weapon. But once again, removing this knife for a moment, that knife gives me range. I can still cut there without moving in. Even my closest punch isn't going to hit here. So certainly my farthest punch isn't going to hit. So understanding what type of weapons you have available, what they do, what they're meant for, and then how to, you know, use them is going to be vitally important when defending yourself against an attacker. And also always keeping in mind that if you ever deploy your weapon, I don't care what it is, you know, in the case of a martial artist, because I know martial arts, I'm going to, just legally speaking, going to be held at a higher standard. And then, you know, obviously if you draw a gun or a knife, or you hit somebody with a stick and you do damage to them, well, you know, once again, gun, stick, knife, they're all weapons. And so you're going to be held at a certain standard. They're going to, you know, look at, like, particularly what you could have done to maybe prevent it, okay? Which is, you know, a whole nother video. And I believe I've touched on this in other videos, maybe even made a video about it, particularly about situational awareness. If you're situationally aware and you're aware of your environment, you're less likely to even encounter a situation that would require you to use any of these tools. And I understand people aren't just walking around with sticks in their pocket or in their bag, or, you know, something like that. But a stick is just merely a weapon of choice. I mean, you could grab anything. This could also be a pipe. This could be a cane. This could be anything that has this length and gives you that range. Okay? So never think one-dimensionally. Just like your keys can be a stabbing weapon, just like a knife. Maybe not a slashing weapon like a knife, but it certainly could be a stabbing option. So understanding, you know, what you have accessible and what can be utilized as that particular weapon, and then understanding the ranges with that weapon. Because if you don't understand the ranges, then, you know, you're certainly gonna have a very difficult time defending yourself, particularly when it comes to a weapon. And that includes firearms. People tend to think that once they get a firearm, that no matter what range they're at, and when I say range, not like an actual gun range, but, you know, distance between you and your attacker, they think they got the upper hand. That's not always the case. Even at 15 feet, if a person has a knife at 15 feet and you have a gun, that person with the knife has an equal, if not better, chance of getting you. Mainly because if he already has the blade in hand and he's already started the attack, by the time you respond by grabbing your weapon, pulling it out, and getting it on sight, you've already lost so much time. And then the natural response is usually to extend. By that time, he's already cut your fingers, cut your hand, or cut your throat. He's already entered into your space, and you didn't even get any shots off. And if you do get a shot off, at best, you'll probably hit like a shoulder or, you know, an extremity of some sort. But nothing vital. And then if that person's on drugs, you're really going to have a problem because they're probably not even going to feel it. So I'll end there. I just wanted to, highlight the specifics of ranges, mainly because the previous video was just talking about firearms. And so while firearms is one type of weapon, there's many different types of weapons that can be utilized in self-defense. And it doesn't always have to be a stick, as I indicated earlier. And blades, depending on where you're at, as long as they're, this is a training blade, but as long as they're within a palm, that's how I've always learned it, then it's legal. Now, obviously, different states have different rules for blade carry, but I think you're pretty safe if you have something that's, roughly half the size of this, and you can still do damage. I guess I'll end here, since we're on blades, or really any weapon, is targeting. Making sure that you're hitting a very specific target. You should never just be randomly trying to just hit anything just to hurt the person. Because if you're just trying to hurt the person, well, you can do anything to hurt the person. If you get cut here, that's going to hurt. But, that's not necessarily going to stop the threat. What's going to stop the threat is somebody getting stabbed here, or stabbed into the heart, or stabbed into the armpit, or into and you can't see, but it's what's called the iliac crest, just below the pelvic girdle. On the wrist, cutting on the inside of the wrist, and here on the inside of the knee. So there's a lot of different areas or just behind the knee, stabbing. So understanding not only your targets, but what is required in order to puncture that target. Because some areas you may need a slash, such as the wrist. Yes, you could probably stab there, but since it's a smaller target, it's probably easier to slash there, as opposed to stabbing. Now, heart, throat, jugular, those are probably stabbing motions. Cutting, stabbing, parrying, cut, stab. So if a punch comes here, you can parry, cut, push down, and stab directly to the throat, and then turn and pull out. Now, I'm sorry if I've digressed a little bit from the initial prompt of this video, but I think some of this stuff is important when we're talking self-defense, whether with blade, sticks, or guns. But most importantly, understanding the ranges and what your tool is meant for, and what are the appropriate responses with that tool depending on those ranges that we discussed. So that being said, if you like this video, please like, subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below in this video. If you're in the Hartford area and you're looking for any type of self-defense, whether it be just in martial arts or just with firearms, or more of a hybrid type of training, which incorporates a multitude of different elements within self-defense, from physical conditioning, because that's always a part of it, to the weapons element of it, and then to the hand-to-hand combat of it. It incorporates it all. And so if you're interested, please go to my website, dnddefense.com, and you can see some of my programs. I do want to add a disclaimer. I am in the process of developing those and expanding on those programs to make them more compatible for people, by putting them in programs that are 6 to 8 week programs, as opposed to just a program that you purchase and that you just purchase with no beginning or end in sight. That being said, until I make those updates, that's what it'll look like. So if you're interested, please go to my website. And if you're unsure for whatever reason, most people, if they're unsure, it's because they're not familiar with me and my certifications or qualifications. So if that is one of your reasons for being unsure, I would suggest that you look me up on Plus One Defense Systems. I am a certified instructor for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in that dojo. The head instructor of that dojo can vouch for my credentials, as well as going to the USCCA website, where you can also find me as a certified instructor, firearms instructor. On that website. So again, if you're unsure or you want to verify my credentials, plus my website certainly goes over my credentials as well. And my mission statement, it's mainly it's not to create green berets or MMA fighters. It's merely to give the average citizen some skills and tools that they can take into their life and, feel a little more confident in having to deal with a dangerous situation in order to keep them safe or their loved ones safe, or even an innocent bystander for that matter. So please visit my website. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like this content. Also leave a comment below saying what other type of comment or content you would like to see, and I'll be more than happy to accommodate. So with that being said, I hope you like this video. Like, subscribe, and be safe.